الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد النبي أمي وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين أما بعد. Today we are going to discuss one of the important chapter related to corporate social responsibility and business ethics. The title of chapter 5 is related to business ethics and ethical decision making. When we would like to define business ethics, we could define it as principles and standards that guide the behavior of individuals and groups in a world of business. As we explained, we have different types of groups are related to our organization, such as managers, employees, consumers, industry association, government regulator, business partners, and special interest groups. All of these groups actually they are contributing to business ethics. Also, we must take in our consideration that principles and standards that guide the association between these groups and the organization are not fixed, but actually these guides tend to change over time. Therefore, when we're discussing business ethics, we didn't only mean the legal issue, but actually the business ethics goes beyond legal issues. Foundation of business ethics. Ethical conflict in the organization dictate the need for organizational ethics policy and procedures. But the main purpose of the existence of business ethics is to solve and find a solution for the ethical conflict. Many ethical conflicts could be resolved either by negotiation or through litigation. Personal morality is often not sufficient to help people navigate through difficult legal issues. In business, if we would like to define what is the ethical issue, actually we could define the ethical issue as a problem or a situation or opportunity requiring an individual, group, or organization to choose among several actions that must be evaluated as right or wrong, ethical or unethical, such as honesty and fairness, conflict of interest, fraud, discrimination, the use of information technology. All of these things are a main topics related to ethics, and in most of cases are related to most of modern business organizations. In any organization, you could find different behavior. A main purpose of such a behavior is due to the misconduct. Example of different specific type of misconduct observed in different business organization, such as abusive behavior, such as internet abuse, safety violation, discrimination, stealing, sexual harassment, provision of low quality goods and service, improper hiring practices, environmental violation, bribes, alteration of financial records. All of these things are examples of different types of misconduct. One of a main reason behind a misconduct is what we call abusive or intimidation behavior. Abusive or intimidation behavior is the most common ethical problem for employees. When you are asking a survey of employees, you will find that the main problem facing and affecting employees is what we call abusive or intimidation behavior. This abusive or intimidation behavior, it can mean anything from physical threats, false accusation, annoying a coworker, inciting him, harshness him, ignoring someone, or being unreasonable. All of these things could be under the main topic, which is abusive or intimidating behavior. Here, this also bullies. This is also one of the intimidation behavior, and we have different actions associated with bullies, such as spreading rumors to damage others, blocking other communication in a workplace, flaunting status or authority to take advantage of others, discrediting others' ideas and opinions, using email to demean others, failing to communicate or return communication, inciting, yelling, and shooting, using terminology to discriminate by gender, race, or age, using eye or body language to hurt others or affecting their reputation, taking credit for others' work or ideas. All of things reflect different actions associated with bullies, which is a reflection of abusive. Lying. It's the opposite of to be honest. To be honest is to tell the truth to the best of your ability. The lying, it's the opposite of it. It relates to distorting the truth. To tell a lie, we have three types of it. Number one, joking without malice, lying by commission, or lying by omission. Joking without malice, it means it's a white lie, told in order not to hurt someone's feelings. Just you are telling a lie and you didn't target someone, and it's not in your mind that you are seeking to hurt someone. This is why it's called white lie. Lying by commission, it means creating a perception or belief by words that intentionally deceives. You are intending to deceive someone by creating a specific perception or belief, and this is called lying by commission. Lying by omission, it means intentionally not informing the receiver of material effects, and you try to not to provide him with different facts, and you are intended to do it. This is what's called lying by omission. Also, one of the reason could affect on the business ethics, what we call the conflict of interests. A conflict of interests actually it raises when an individual must choose whether to advance his or her own personal interests or to choose a situation that could achieve the benefit of the organization or other group. In this case, you could find a certain conflict of interest. Conflict of interest it's the main reason behind what we call the agency problem. In this agency problem, we have a manager and we have an agent. In most of cases, you could find a conflict of interests between them. Agent is seeking to achieve his own benefits. Managers, he is a manager as an agent, and the owner, he has his own interests. In most of cases, you could find a conflict between them. The existence of such conflict of interests would harm the existence of your organization over the long run. So you must be careful about such a type of conflict of interests. In most of cases, a organization prohibits some behavior of their employees, such as accepting bribes, accepting personal payments, accepting gifts, or special favor, because acceptance of these things could lead to conflict of interests between the interests of the organization and the interests of managers. Fraud. Fraud, it's any false communication that deceive, manipulate, or conceal facts in order to create a false impression or damage others. Fraud, we have different types of fraud. The most famous one is accounting fraud, cooking sheets. And they try to giving falsification, wrong numbers in the balance sheet and the income statement, which affect on the situation of the organization. Or we have what we call marketing fraud. In a survey, they tried to test what are the greatest fraud risks for companies. Some of the statistics existed in this survey. They found a conflict of interest is about 50-60% in some organization. Fraudulent financial statements, it's about 57%. Paying scheme, 22%. Expense and reimbursement scheme, 41%. Bribery or economic extortions is 35%. Consumer fraud. Consumer fraud occurs when consumers attempt to deceive business for their own gain. It involves intentional deception to derive an unfair economic advantage by an individual or group over an organization. One of example of consumer fraud is the price tag switching. And when you are going to buy something, there is a price tag on the product. When you switch the price tag, it's a certain type of consumer fraud. Also, one of the consumer fraud is taking advantage of return policy by returning clothing that has been worn. And this is an example, for example. This could be an example of consumer fraud. Discrimination. Discrimination is an affirmative action programs. Involve efforts to recruit, hire, train, and promote qualified individuals from groups that have traditionally been discriminated against on the basis of race, gender, or other characteristics. Discrimination, it is still a significant ethical issue 40 years after the passage of Title V2 of the Civil Rights Act. Also, Sexual harassment can be defined as any repeated, unwanted behavior of a sexual nature perpetrated upon one individual by another. This could also one of example of unethical behavior. Also, nowadays the information technology could lead to a specific unethical behavior, such as a use of internet. As the use of internet increases, the area of concerns related to its use have increased. For example, nowadays there is an increasing for monitoring employees using a specific type of technology. This also could lead to specific unethical behavior. This is an example of personal misconduct in the workplace. So as you hear, this is statistics of development of personal misconduct in the workplace over 2003, 2005, 2007. As you see, based on the statistics, that abusive behavior, it comes at the top of the agenda of personal misconduct in workplace. Second one is putting one own interests first. Putting one own interests first, which is a conflict of interest. This also is the second important personal misconduct in workplace. Sometimes lying, it's also coming. Discrimination, internet abuse, and finally improper hiring practice, sexual harassments come at the bottom of personal misconduct in the workplace. When you're dealing with a ethical decision-making process, you must try to study a main factors affecting the ethical decision-making process. And actually, we could classify these factors affecting the ethical decision-making process into three categories. Category number one, individual factors. Category number two, organizational relationship. And finally is opportunity. The most influential factors on employee behavior is the organizational relationship. And based on different studies, they found that organizational relationship is the strongest factor influencing employee behavior. In dealing with a business ethics and the ethical behavior, we have a different philosophy, moral philosophy. This moral philosophy could be classified into consequentialism, egoism, authoritarianism, ethical formalism, and justice theory. A consequentialism, it's a decision is right or acceptable if it helps achieve the desired result. Egoism, maximizing one's own self-interests. Authoritarianism, it's the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Ethical formalism focuses on the rights of the individual. Justice theory, evaluations of fairness. Moral development, we have what we call Kohlberg model. In Kohlberg model, the people progress through the previous 6 stages. Cognitive moral development should be viewed as a continuum, يعني it's a continuous process. People moral beliefs and behavior change as they gain education and experience. There are universal values by which people in the highest level of moral development abide. In addition to these social needs that could motivate the person to behave ethically or unethically, also a corporate culture play a very important role in defining and in determining whether the behavior is ethical or the behavior is unethical. Corporate culture, it's referred to value, beliefs, goals, norms, rituals shared by members or employees of an organization. This culture, it's determine what is important, how do we treat each other, how do we do things around here. So it's very important also because it's play a very important role in determining the behavior and whether this behavior is ethical or unethical. Also, a corporate culture gives member meaning and offers direction about how to behave and deal with problems. The existence of corporate culture, it also could be derived, it's also based on ethical climate. Ethical climate as a part of corporate culture that relates to an organization expectations about appropriate conduct and focuses specifically on issues of right and wrong. We must take in our consideration that the more employees are exposed to ethical activity by co-workers, the more likely they are to also behave unethically, of course. And if your employees are facing unethical behavior, of course, this will be reflected in their behavior. Opportunity also could play an important role in affecting the behavior, whether it's ethical or unethical. And when we are saying the opportunity could be defined as a conditions that limit barriers or provide rewards. And this opportunity could be financial gain, could be recognition, could be promotion, could be positive feelings from a job well done. This opportunity should be related to employees' immediate job context. How to create ethical relationships in business. Number one, you should listen and learn. Number two, identify the ethical issue. Number three, create and analyze options. Number four, identify the best options. Number five, explain decisions and resolve any differences that may arise. Also, you must try to create an ethical climate, and this, I think, this should be the responsibility of top managers, employees, stakeholders. All of them, they must support the philosophy that all organizations have a responsibility that extend beyond legal and economic obligations. Creating an ethical climate, it would enhance the existence of the ethical behavior in business or organization. Ethical concerns should be incorporated into strategic planning. Management must develop a mechanism for assessing its progress in making ethical decisions that contribute to social